Story 1. Unexplained high bone density. I found out when I got precautionary x-rays after a pretty serious car accident. Basically, it just means that it's much harder for my bones to fracture or break than for the average person. It does come with a downside, though. I have practically no buoyancy in water. I can't float on my back or tread water at all. Story 2. One of my kidneys never formed properly in utero and had already atrophied and disappeared by the time I was born. To compensate, my remaining kidney is apparently twice the size and has the full functionality of two normal kidneys. Whenever I get around to dying, some old guy on dialysis is going to have a really good day. Story 3. I'm the only one in my family that doesn't wear glasses, even when you extend that out to aunts, uncles, and cousins. Even my girlfriend wears glasses, but my vision is perfect. Story 4. I'm naturally immune to smallpox. Apparently, there is a European gene that gives immunity to smallpox, and I happen to have it. I found out when I was in the military and had to get the smallpox vaccine to deploy. Normally, they stick you with a pin 6 times, and you develop an itchy bump where you got stuck that hardens into a scar after a few weeks. I didn't get a bump, so I went back, and they stuck me 60 more times with the pin and told me that if I didn't develop a bump, I was naturally immune. It sucked getting stuck, but it's good to know that if someone goes crazy and spreads some weaponized smallpox to kill the world, I will not die a horrible death from sickness. Story 5. Thanks to working in a very busy pub as a kid, I developed a cat-like reflex when I drop a glass or bottle. I shoot out my foot and break its fall. Works every single time. Dropped a lot of bottles of vodka, never broke a single one. Double guns, blows smoke. Story 6. I can move my ears. I think it's a muscular thing in my head, but I'm not sure. And although I'm a big guy, I'm somehow able to unintentionally sneak up on people and scare them. My uncle calls me Featherfoot, as in the Noongar, Western Australian Aboriginal people, evil spirit that kills people. Story 7. I have a weak stomach and would regularly vomit as a kid after eating, but I have been able to control it and can projectile vomit on command without touching my uvula or anything. I can just instantly make myself vomit hard at will, so I used to do that to get out of having to exercise in physical education class as a kid sometimes. Unfortunately, there's not so much use for that now, though. Story 8. I don't have feeling in my teeth, so it's a double-edged superpower. For example, I had an accident at work around 2 to 3 months ago where 2 of my front teeth were broken in half. There was blood and tooth pieces everywhere in my mouth, but no pain, and I didn't know they were broken in half. So, I had some water to spit out the blood and made a dentist appointment for the next weekend, which was a couple of days later. On the other hand, 2 of my wisdom teeth broke, and after weeks of spitting out tooth pieces, I realized they were gone. This is bad because I could have had an infection and didn't even realize it. Story 9. I am not allergic to poison ivy, oak, or sumac. I have very good eyesight, 20/14 in my left eye and 20/16 in my right eye. I am colorblind, so my brain is trained to see shape, not color. Camouflage doesn't fool me. Story 10. When I was homeless at 17, I ate a rat and didn't die. So there's that. I hate to edit, but thank you guys so much for all the support and honest open conversation about my past experience being homeless. Blown away, guys. Thanks, everyone, for just being cool people. You all stay safe. Story 11. I've had so many brain injuries my therapists and doctors don't understand how I function as well as I do. It's not sunshine and unicorns shitting rainbows, but I'm still intelligent. I just have no cognitive stamina and I have communication deficits, among other things. Story 12. Maybe not the best superpower, well, more like a sidekick power. I can wiggle my second toe, the one right next to the big toe, on its own without moving any other toe. I've only come across one other person who can do this, and I married her. Well, not for that reason. Story 13. Unfortunately, I have a super high pain threshold. Fractured leg, kept working. It was sore but not excruciating. Ripped my finger off with a rope. Didn't know it until I actually saw it a few minutes later. Tried to cut the protruding bone with a pair of side cutters and mangled the bone. Broke 3 vertebrae in my neck. Took the collar off once I could walk again. Went back to work. broken eye socket in a bar fight, kept drinking, worked the whole next week. There's much more. The unfortunate part? I feel all of it every damn day now. Story 14. Not related to your question, but I got poison ivy on my private area which caused permanent scarring. It also occurred on my right forearm. I'm quite envious of your resistance to the ivy. Edited to add. Since this got attention, I need to add one thing. For anyone that is as uninformed as I was, I need to make it clear. You are not supposed to clean the ivy 3 times a day with rubbing alcohol for the duration of the rash. That will only greatly exacerbate the issue. You clean once to remove the oil, then treat with a topical ointment to soothe your body's response. I, on the other hand, chose daily treatment with alcohol, probably why it ended up scarring. Story 15. I shouldn't have it based on society's norms of what a man should be, but I cracked the code in my teens and haven't looked back. It's definitely not a superpower, but it's been a wild ride. Now happily married at 40. Edit. I also have horrific irritable bowel syndrome, so that's definitely my kryptonite. Story 16. 2015 vision and immunity to mosquito bites. Bonus. An experience with opioids appears to imply I am not prone to drug addiction and respond to them less intensely, but I am not willing to experiment with testing that one. Story 17. Maybe once every year or two, my head goes into super overdrive for a couple of months, and I become the most confident, productive, shameless, arrogant person you've ever seen. Then I go into a state of craziness and crash in extremely bizarre ways. It took a long time to realize that I'm not intermittent Superman. I'm just mentally ill. Story 18. I can flex my muscles in my ear in such a way as to dull or dampen incoming sound. Sounds like a low rumble and I can hold it for a long time. It really helps at concerts. Story 19. I'm in the small percentage of people that have a triple fused tooth. 1 tooth, 3 roots in the lower jaw. It's perfectly straight, but dentists are always in awe. Story 20. I have adult attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It makes problem-solving fun and very quick. I also have the ability to explain things to my boss in a way that he understands them, so all my coworkers go through me. Also, I'm super jealous. I got poison ivy on my face once and puffed up like a fat baby. Story 21. Not a dude, but I have 4 types of cones in my eye instead of 3. Tetrachromia exists in about 12% of women. I found out because I can see extra colors below the violet band on rainbows. Story 22. A big truck knocked me off my bike and ran over my leg with the back tires. The doctors didn't believe I got run over because my bones didn't break or fracture. My bike was between my legs and took a lot of the weight off my leg, but all the witnesses saw it go over my leg. I saw it when I went under the truck too. I feel invincible. I had a lot of swelling and have a permanent bruise with some muscle atrophy, but I'm fine otherwise. Story 23. Even when I first began weightlifting in my late teens, I was abnormally strong for a beginner. This carried through my powerlifting days. The number of people who have asked if I was using steroids has to be in the hundreds. I'm just a middle-aged white-collar worker who can't even get into the gym regularly anymore, even before COVID, and I can still bench over 400 pounds. Story 24. Okay, so we discovered my body morphed while I was going through chemotherapy last year. Apparently, I developed an extremely high tolerance to pain. I no longer feel pain the way most people do, and it takes a lot of painkillers to remove pain when I do feel it. To give an example, a biopsy was performed on me, and they forgot to give me a local anesthetic. I barely felt a thing. The doctor almost fainted when she found out because there was a 1-inch gash in my abdomen. After that, they ran some experiments to see what I could and couldn't feel. They had to give me a medication that would increase common pain, like a cut on the finger or arm, tenfold. To me, it felt like a paper cut. I now have to do random checks throughout the day to make sure I have not cut myself or broken a bone. The doctor said that it might have been caused by the amount of platinum that they injected into me during chemotherapy, and he also said one day it might go away. Story 25. My hearing is very good for a 34-year-old. I can still hear things up to 19,500 hertz. Having cathode ray tubes disappear made me so happy. They make an awful high-pitched noise no one in my family seems to be able to hear. Story 26. I got hit in the eye with a softball as a kid, and as a result, my left eye is pretty bad. But to compensate for that, my right eye is amazing. I can't read anything farther than 2 feet away with my left eye, but I can read writing the size of a fingernail from across the room with my right eye. Story 27. My metabolism is incredibly insane. When I eat, my body seems to turn most of my food into heat energy. You can actually feel heat radiate off of me. And if I take a shower soon after eating a large meal, I can see steam coming off of me. I eat about 3,000 calories a day on average and am still slightly underweight. My feet smell like butter. I have excellent vision and can also see in the dark fairly well. Story 28. My erection points up so I can hang lots of heavy towels and other objects from it without them falling off. I'm also creative, so one time I hung a red, white, and blue towel from it and sang the Star-Spangled Banner. My girlfriend really liked that. Edit. It's not Peroni's, it's just a penis. Story 29. Watches stopped working on me ever since I was a kid. I went through 40 watches, including expensive ones, and every single one would stop working within a week. In the late 1990s, when Google came out, I looked into it and apparently it's a thing. I am Magneto. The only watch I can wear is a digital watch. Story 30. So the summer after my freshman year of high school, I went on an outward bound course. It was the 3rd or 4th day, and it was my turn to dig the latrine, so I found a nice spot with a log to hold on to and plenty of leafy plants to wipe with. I christened the latrine, ate dinner, and called it an early night. The next morning, however, it became rapidly apparent that my trip mates were suffering greatly, which is how I discovered that, like the original poster, I am not allergic to poison ivy. On the bright side, I was not allowed to dig the latrine after that. Story 31. Anesthesia doesn't cause me any side effects after surgery. I had to be put under twice in the last few years. One to get my wisdom teeth removed and the other because I had nasal polyps, which apparently can grow back. Anyway, I woke up both times feeling perfectly fine. I wasn't groggy, out of it, or saying weird things. Honestly, I was a little disappointed because, as much as I would have hated being the laughingstock for a short while, it would have been a funny moment. But nope, I didn't get to experience that. I'll just live vicariously through the videos on YouTube, I guess. Story 32. My knees are bent to the inside like Forrest Gump, which means that when my knees are pointing straight, my feet are pointing outwards. It's genetic and it doesn't bother me in any way, except I am able to turn my feet and form angles of over 180 degrees. I feel very comfortable walking on ledges and tight spaces. It's useless, but I like it. Also, I can't smell certain things. You can be smelling bad next to me, and I probably won't be able to tell. This came in handy with my ex, who was a serial farter. Story 33. I'm a tetrachromat. I have a gene that gives me a 4th type of retinal cone. I can see approximately 100 million colors. I can differentiate between colors that look the same to most people. I've never failed that weird colorblindness test you take at the eye doctor, and I was pretty sure the dress was blue. Story 34. You know when your significant other sends you to the store to get something, but they don't have the thing that she asked for? I always come back home with a tolerable substitute. It's not much, but it's honest work. Story 35. I always remember exactly where my car is parked or whatever car I last rode in. It's a superpower with some pretty limited applications, but it absolutely never fails. Story 36. I can pick up and fiddle with most instruments and make a semi-decent sound. Give me a little while with one, and I'll get a melody. Not the most unusual thing at all, I just have a knack for instruments. Story 37. I have Crohn's disease. It mostly sucks but can provide some comic relief from time to time. My guts will gurgle really loud sometimes, and it's funny when I can turn it into a joke. Other times the farts are incredible. Those times make the time with my sons a riot. Story 38. I can touch my nose with my tongue. It's not much, obviously, but a lot of people say they can't do it. I can flip it upside down, too. Oh yeah, and I have better than perfect vision. Ironically, when I was a kid, I had a best friend with glasses and I thought they were cool, so I faked missing things on an eye exam so I could get glasses. I couldn't see in them, laughing my head off. Story 39. Don't know how much is rare, but I have chronic urticaria on my whole body and have to get antihistamines every day, or I get all red and puffed up. Yet, I'm not allergic to anything besides some type of cheese. Story 40. I got the same. Not allergic to poison ivy at all. But I am allergic to hydrocortisone cream, so I end up with issues when someone else touches poison ivy. Story 41. I walk around barefoot, so often my feet have very little sensitivity by this point. I can step on a Lego. I'm also immune to Escherichia coli, better known as Escherichia coli. But I wouldn't want to ingest anything contaminated with Escherichia coli anyway. Story 42. Super allergic to poison ivy, but I also have something with my brain where I process things almost exclusively through analogy, so I'm very good at explaining things. So much so that I helped my biology teacher in high school teach biology while taking the class. Story 43. My origin is that I was a very dirty child. As such, I hardly ever get ill. I had COVID-19 in March, and it had little to no effect, which means I only need to worry about spreading it as opposed to catching it. Catching illnesses and being able to ignore them is my not-so-great superpower. Story 44. I used to have a cyst on my wrist, and one time I beat up a friend who pushed me and kept talking badly. I didn't want to hurt him seriously, so I slapped him around and used the cyst on my wrist like a club to backhand him. Now that I think about it, that thing could have taken out an eye.